Hello, everyone, and welcome to the With Chinese Characteristics podcast. I'm Natalie.
I'm Cherry.
Together, we talk about topics with Chinese characteristics. Our topic for today, Cherry, is what?
Another episode of the book club for water margins.
So we're on chapter 3 now. So if you haven't listened to the first 2 chapters, you should probably catch up. And we'll talk about when it was written, when it's set in the Song Dynasty, about tough dudes, men of valor.
Or women of valor.
Well,
although the book counts all of them as men of valor.
If you have valor, Cherry, you're an honorary dude in this society. In
this patriarchal society, the best compliment for a woman is to be a man.
Yeah, to be a tough man.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into chapter 3. When we ended on chapter 2, we were with 9 Dragon Shujin, Failson martial artist and dragon tattoo enthusiast.
The first hero.
The first hero,
of our book.
He only wants to do martial arts his whole life. He's only like 20. He's young compared to some of the other people we'll meet.
Let me just correct. Not the first hero as being the most important, ranking 1 hero.
No.
Just the first hero that we met.
Because there's 108.
Yes.
And
Shujin might be on the towards near the end of the ranking.
Yeah. Well, like everything in Chinese society, there's a hierarchy.
Yeah.
Even among the bandits.
The
108. It's the 32 heavenly spirits and the 76 earthly fiends. They got released.
I'm trying to do some math in my head right now.
That's 108.
It's 108 total.
I think that's how it breaks up.
Yeah.
Maybe
36 plus 72.
36, 70. There we go. His mother died, Shujin, because all he wants to do is martial arts.
So she worried herself to death.
That's
totally legitimately a medical condition.
Well, and she was right, because now, his father died, and instead of fighting the bandits, he's inviting them over for Mid-Autumn Festival.
He's befriending them.
Because they're cool and they, fight with swords and stuff.
Yeah, and they're just loyal to each other.
Man, wouldn't that be cool, Cherry?
Yeah.
Why don't we just quit our jobs and become bandits,
Right?
I feel like that's an enduring fantasy of just like, screw society. We're just going to go out and,
Yeah. Well, in Shujin's case, he's a failed son, so he came with vast amounts of money and real estate.
Yeah, so he has no
Although
real reason.
he messed it all up.
Yeah, well, he's about to mess it up.
Yeah.
So the bandits are in his house for Mid-Autumn Festival.
Yeah.
And the police show up.
I don't know if they were called police back
then. Well, they're the
days.
sheriff, right?
Yeah.
The interesting thing about this story is compared to other books you'll read, like in this time period, set in like Europe and things, or written in this time period, the society is very modern and understandable. There's a sheriff, there's inns, right? There's government services.
Yeah.
So.
Which is true. That was how Chinese society, advanced Chinise society was.
I know, but if you're in a slightly similar time period, is not too far off from like the Vikings in Europe.
Yeah.
If you're looking at
Chinese
England.
people are superior.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Although then we peaked, then we just never advanced anymore. So here we are.
Once you get the gunpowder and the compass, and what else?
You're like, let's sit back.
Enjoy.
Let's just kick off.
Kick back.
Let's kick back.
Make some pottery.
Yeah.
The police show up. And
let's kick some footballs.
Yeah.
That's late. It's about 5 seconds late.
Yeah.
But just take it as, let's sit back and kick some football.
Yeah, let's have some fun.
Yeah.
So the police show up.
Yeah.
And they go, Shujin, there's bandits in your house.
As if Shujin didn't know.
Shujin is basically like, 1 second. Let me think.
Yeah. And they just let him. They just wait.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that in a second. But the 3 bandits are like, just turn us in.
Yeah.
Just let it. We'll die together.
Yeah.
And it's unclear whether or not that's a scheme or they're actually, saying turn us in.
Yeah.
And Shujin, they've been drinking, they've been partying. He gets kind of caught up in the moment, and he goes, "No, I invited you here.
Yeah.
We're gonna fight.
We're brothers.
We're gonna fight and die together."
Yeah.
So he has to stall for time, and then he asks the police. Essentially, it's the sheriff and a bunch of soldiers, but. Let's think of him as the police. He's like, well, why do you think I have bandits in here?
Yeah.
And then Lee the rabbit hunter, who has shown up in the last chapter.
The one who snitched.
Yeah. Is like, well, I found your messenger with a note saying, hi, we're the bandits. We're going to come over from Mid-Autumn.
We accept your invitation.
To Mid-Autumn Festival.
Yeah.
And so Shujin summons his messenger, whose name is Wang the Fourth. And he says, so in the book, You said there was no reply.
Yeah.
Where did that letter come from? And he says, I was drunk. I forgot about it.
Yeah.
Wretch, shouted Shujin. You've got us in a pretty fix. So then he kills Wang the Fourth.
He wasted no time.
No, he just brings him out back and cuts his head off.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably the first person Shujin has killed.
Yeah.
But he, it doesn't seem to
that
pause
we know
that
of.
much.
Yeah.
So Shujin tells the sheriff he's going to hand over the bandits. He just needs a couple minutes to get them tied up or whatever.
Yes.
The sheriff is like, all right, because the sheriff, similar like everyone else in the society, understands Shujin is a tough dude.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to fight him.
He's being formed by the Tough Dude Network.
Yeah, the Tough Dude Network. He knows Shujin is a tough dude. He doesn't want to fight him. And also, remember, this is a hierarchical, patriarchal society.
Mm-hmm.
Shujin is like the village leader.
Yeah.
It's easier to just let everybody save face.
Yeah.
And just Shujin can pretend he didn't know.
Yeah. And let's not step on anyone's toes.
No, he hands them over.
It.
The sheriff doesn't have to fight. Everybody go home's happy.
Yeah.
So the sheriff goes, okay.
That would be the best result.
Yes. But Shujin's not going to turn in the bandits. He grabs up all his belongings, and then he essentially sets his house on fire.
Yeah.
And sets his house on fire, and they all, which the Xue family has probably worked on and improved generations of.
The Shi family is like the village elder, like the village leader, basically.
They're all named Xue, but this is like the head family
Yeah.
of the Xue clan.
Yeah, so generational wealth,
Just up in smoke.
generational reputation, leadership, all gone.
Yeah.
This all escalates very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably there's like the graves there of his ancestors, all
No, it's
ruined
fine.
because he wants to go play bandit.
Yeah.
So he rushes out with the bandits. They cut their way through all the soldiers.
Yeah.
And they escape. He also makes sure to kill the rabbit hunter.
Yeah.
Who ratted him out.
Yeah.
He kills him on the way out.
Yeah. In this book, there are some I think we are going to run into some characters who you get the perspective of them like being just a regular everyday citizen.
Yeah.
And then they are, through different reasons, they're either forced or by coincidence or just because it's a patriarchal society that eats people and they have to kill people and do some bad deeds.
Shujin just makes bad decisions.
Yes. So you see those characters we might run into.
Yeah.
Later, you see.
For example, having too hot of a wife.
Sure.
That's a big problem that will have you become a bandit.
The writer will lend them the perspective and talk about how, oh my God, what have I done?
Yeah.
But with Shujin, there's zero of these.
Well, I feel
zero
like,
regrets, zero hesitation, zero, should I do this?
Yeah, there's no social commentary about problems with China that cause people to go to banditry.
No.
Except that he's just bored and he's young.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the social commentary, right? That if you have young sons with nothing to do,
the testosterone's run high.
Yeah.
They gotta stir up some trouble.
So they escape, kill the rabbit hunter. They fight their way.
Of course, they do. They're heroes.
Yeah, and they make their way up to the fortress. And
have we mentioned the three bandits? They're also
Stars of Destiny.
Yeah, so we have met 4 of them.
We have Zhu Wu, Yang Chun, and Chen Da. So they go up to the bandit fortress in the mountain. This is from the book. Shujin remained for several days. He thought to himself, to save 3 people, I burned down my manor.
Yeah.
Although I managed to keep a few small valuables, my larger property is gone completely.
Yeah.
He felt uneasy. How could he stay in a place like this?
Yeah. So now the the monologue comes in. Now the monologue comes in.
He's calmed down.
Yeah.
He's sobered up.
Yeah.
They're not in the heat of the moment.
No.
He realizes,
ooh, what have I done?
this was a pretty stupid. This is a pretty stupid decision I made.
Yeah. He looks around. It's just like a cave.
It's just like
it's
a
not
cave.
like his family estate.
And a bunch of grimy bandits who are
who just drinks and rob people all day long.
It's not like a band of heroes.
No.
So he has some second thoughts. He eventually
a little late, but
the horse is already bolted. So he decides he wants to follow Wang Jin.
Yeah.
The arms instructor we met in chapter 2 who taught him, how to be a tough dude.
Yeah.
Maybe Wang Jin is going to regret that decision.
Maybe.
After he sees what happened.
Because Wang Jin's a very reasonable person.
Mm-hmm. He carried his 60-year-old mom with him on his journey across China.
Yeah.
So the bandits want him to stay, though. And then he says, this is Shujin, my reputation is spotless. How can I sully the body my parents have given me? There's no use in trying to persuade me to become a bandit. It's like,
I don't know if it's spotless anymore.
Yeah, I think you killed like a bunch of people in front of the sheriff and like a couple hundred soldiers. And
At this point, being a bandit is going to be a smaller offense than what you have committed.
Yeah, so he leaves. And the bandits all literally weep watching him go. Because,
I don't know if they literally.
No, they're sad. These are strong, tough dudes.
Yeah.
But you know what? Sometimes the strongest thing to do is, Cherry, deal with your emotions.
Well, I will say in the Chinese novel, I don't know if this is the same as medieval European novels, but to cry is not a... It's fine.
No,
it's
I
pretty
know.
common actually to when they describe men who cry.
Modern masculinity is very toxic, you know? In the Iliad or like ancient novels, Greek and Roman stuff, you know, like your buddy dies in war, you know, you crying, you know, it's emotional. You have feelings.
Yeah, that's okay.
These are passionate men, Cherry.
Sure.
And they have strong emotions.
Yeah.
And
so they weep as he leaves.
And there's nothing manly.
No.
But I want to talk about his traveling outfit because, you know, the other thing these tough men have? Fashion. This is what Shujin is wearing.
Sure.
When he leaves the bandit fortress to go after Wang Jin. A broad-brimmed felt hat topped by a red tassel covered the soft black bandana which bound his head. Around his neck was a kerchief of bright yellow. He wore a silk military gown tied at the waist by a plum-colored sash 5 fingers wide. His legs were wrapped with alternate strips of blue and white. On his feet were looped hemp sandals good for mountain climbing. A sword hung from his waist.
Wow.
So he's got fashion, you know?
He's got fashion.
It's not just wearing like a brown cloak, you know? He's got like colors, he's got alternating things, he's got bright stuff.
And I also guess maybe this is not the time period just yet, but quite often in history, like from time to time, the emperor will be like, or the court will be like, you cannot wear purple, plum, I guess, or yellow.
That's a thing in That's a thing in medieval Europe too. They're called sumptuary laws. And basically the issue is at a certain point you have peasants and merchants who have more money than nobles or have enough money and they start dressing like nobles.
Yeah.
And the court doesn't like it because you can't tell who's who.
Yeah.
But soldiers and mercenaries were normally exempt from that. And they would always loot stuff. So they would always look very colorful because, you know. And the Pope said you can't make mercenaries follow these laws because their lives are so sad and short that they should be able to dress up as a treat. So anyway, he travels for a few weeks before he arrives in Weizhou. He asks for Wang Jin, but they're like, oh, wait, there's like 5 Wang Jins. You know, Lao Baixin, old 100 names.
Yeah.
There's only so many different names in China, you know?
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of Wang Jins in a big city.
Yes.
So he goes to a tea house to figure out what to do next. So a big fellow who looked like an army officer strode in. His head was bound in a bandana with figured swastikas. Remember, swastikas are a Buddhist symbol originally that the Nazis reversed and took.
Yeah.
So the bandana is buckled in the back with twisted gold rings from Taiwan. A raven-plated sash bound his parrot green warrior's gown at the waist. On his feet were yellow boots embossed with 4 welts of brown leather in hawk talon design. He had large ears, a straight nose, and a broad mouth. A full beard framed his round face. He was 6 feet tall and had a girth of 10 spans.
You want to guess if this is going to be a hero?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a hero.
This is a huge dude.
Yeah.
This is a huge dude. He's got a bright green tunic on.
Yeah.
And he's got style. He's got gold rings. He's got all kinds of cool stuff. So this is a giant, big dude with a big beard.
Yeah.
So turns out this guy is an officer at the garrison named Lu Da. And he immediately senses, Cherry, that Shi Jin is a man of valor.
They all have this aura.
Yeah, you can just tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like if you're like playing an RPG and there's like a level over someone's head.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're
like floating.
Yeah, you're like, all right, this guy's high level.
Yeah.
And they hit it off.
Of course they do.
Both being men of valor. Lu Da even knows that Shi Jin is 9 Dragon Shi, which again, every tough dude just seems to know who every other tough dude is in the world.
Yeah.
That must be pretty cool though. You walk into a new town a couple weeks away and they're like, you're 9 Dragon Shi.
Yes.
It's like,
well, I think he heard it from Wang Jing, but
I know.
Tough Dudes Network.
Tough Dudes Network.
Yeah. What did he say? He said, Lu Da said, meeting a man of fame is better than just hearing his name. So the two heroes meet.
So they hit it off.
Yeah.
Turns out Wang Jin is not here in Weizhou, but is farther away in Yan'an. Anyway, they start hanging out, Le Da and Shi Jin. Then they run into another tough dude. A combination martial artist / medicine seller on the street, doing a show, selling some powders. Cherry and I talked about this because I was curious, because this was an insult in chapter 1. It was like, your father wasn't a arms instructor. He was just a medicine seller. And I was like, is this a common profession, being a combination martial artist / medicine seller? And you were saying that it's just like basically it's like you're just like a street performer.
Yeah.
And
well, the street performance is not to sell it's to sell whatever else you're selling. It's like put on a show and people come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a common thing.
Doesn't seem that weird.
Yeah. Well, and traveling medicine sellers seems to be a common trope. Maybe they're not all martial artists, but Judge D dressed up as one.
Yeah.
So it seems a common thing.
I just think it's an easy thing to sell. Like,
also,
you can carry it around. It's mobile.
It's not
like
going to
pots
work.
and pans and
It's not going to work, but by the time they figure out it doesn't work, you're gone already.
yeah, it's herbal medicine. You sell some chamomile tea. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's easy to carry. It's light.
Rub this lizard on your knee and
Exactly.
it'll feel better.
It's all in like powder form.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's easier than selling. What else could you sell back in the days?
Rice,
you don't
maybe. I don't know.
Sure, but those are heavy. You see.
Also, a lot of those things require licenses to sell, like tea and stuff. You have to have a state license to sell, or you get in trouble.
Well, there you go.
Tea smuggling.
Well, so tea requires license, or salt requires license, but not dry lizards.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So
easy to get into.
Yeah. So this guy, this medicine seller / martial artist,
Yeah.
named Li Zhong, was one of Shi Jin's instructors back in the day.
Yeah.
Remember, Shi Jin, before he had Wang Jin, had several instructors, although apparently they weren't very good
Yeah.
before he met Wang Jin. So maybe not top tier martial artist.
Li Zhong is one of the heroes, but he's one of the lower ranking ones.
He's not in the winner's bracket.
No.
So again, tough dudes, 3 of them.
Yeah.
They hit it off.
And they drink, of course.
But Lu Da, we learn a little about his personality. So he says, "Since you're the young master Shi's teacher," said Lu Da, "come and have a few cups with us." Wine. "Gladly. Just as soon as I've sold some of these medicines and earned some money. Who's got time to wait? Come on, if you're coming. Mine is a hand-to-mouth existence, Major. Go ahead. I'll catch up with you later. Young brother, you go first with the Major." Lu Da was very irritated.
Yeah.
He roughly shoved the spectators aside. "Haul your assholes out of here, or I'll beat you to a pulp."
Yeah.
Li Zhong just kind of sighs and is like, "Well, guess I'm going drinking."
Guess I'm not making any money today.
Yeah. So they go to
So Luda's a bit of a jerk.
Lu Da is a bit of a jerk. So they go to a tavern and start getting wasted and talking about cool, tough guy martial arts stuff.
As men do.
And you can kind of tell all of the service staff in this town
Yeah.
are terrified of Lu Da.
Yeah.
They're just so almost like comically obedient to him
Yeah.
because, well, we'll see why in a second.
Yeah.
So they're having their tough guy, cool martial arts talk when they hear people whining, and crying in the room over.
Yeah.
And Lu Da throws a little temper tantrum.
Yeah.
He starts breaking things and like flipping over stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, and he gets the waiter and he's like, "How dare you allow crying
Yeah.
in this establishment
Yeah.
when we're talking about cool guy martial arts stuff?"
How could the world did not take notice
Yeah.
that he's here?
Yeah. So the waiter says he's sorry, but the 2 people, Cherry, do you know what they are doing?
What are they doing?
They're lamenting their bitter fate.
Mm.
Lu Da is like, "Oh yeah? Drag him over here and let's see how bitter this fate is." So they drag him over there. And Lu Da is like, "What's up?" So it turns out it's a girl of 18 named
Yeah.
Jade Lotus. And
Good name.
so it's sort of a weird thing is that girls don't really get real names in China in this time period.
No.
Like you kind of almost just have like a nickname, and then you get married and you take on the family name of
Yeah.
the person you married into.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah. So, her first name's not Jade, her last name's not Lotus. She doesn't have her family name.
No.
So,
Well, their family name is Jean, but
yeah, but that's not, yeah. So anyway, so she's described as not very pretty, though the girl was rather appealing, which is like, it's kind of like it's nagging her.
yeah.
Like the author's like nagging her in the narrative.
Yeah. What can I say? In the Chinese version, after they said the sentence, they also added a poem to describe how hot she actually is.
Oh, okay.
That she is actually appealing, but it's not included in the English version. I do find that sometimes, this has happened a few times already, there's a poem placed in the middle of a chapter, and then either providing extra context or just adding details to something that was described. In this case, the girl. And it's not always included in the English version.
Okay.
So I feel like it's missing some
context here.
But shall
let's
I
hear the
describe?
poem about Jade Lotus.
So to describe how hot the girl actually is, indeed, the author said, the loose, tall hair bound like clouds with a jade pin.
Ooh.
The willowy, slender waist is tied with a red silk skirt.
Are you trying to like make this sultry? Like what?
A plain old white shirt covers the snow body. Light yellow soft socks lined with bow shoes, which means her feet was bound. I'm not trying to make this sultry. The author is trying to make this sultry.
Well, first he nagged her, you know?
That's what they do
It's
to
like,
women.
It's like, she's okay. Well, I guess she was kind of hot.
Yeah. Her pink face lowered down. Her fine skin can melt snow. If her sadness is not due to diseases, it must be sorrow and misfortune. So we're describing, you know, I guess they did add.
we have a
she looks sad.
We have
right?
a damsel in distress, Cherry.
Exactly.
And her father is 50, named Jin. So here's their bitter fate. They came to visit a relative, but the relative was gone when they got here. So Jade Lotus's mom died while they were there. Then this guy named Master Zheng, Lord of the West, forced her into marriage.
Yeah.
Never paid the dowry,
Yeah.
then kicked her out and wanted the dowry back,
Yes.
which is 3,000 strings of cash.
Yeah.
So a string of cash, depending on the time period, it can be different. But I think at this time period, it's like 1,000 copper coins on a string.
Okay.
It's one
How
string
much
of cash.
does that buy?
Well, I don't know.
Okay.
I mean,
Well, it's some amount of money.
it's a lot of money.
It's a pretty significant
It's a
amount
lot
of
of money,
Yeah.
right? It's a lot of money.
You can't just come up with it overnight.
A string of cash, it can actually change, but typically a string of cash is equal to like one tael of silver. But I mean, obviously, this author is writing it 300 years later.
Yeah.
Or 400 years later, so you know they don't know what the economy was like in the Song Dynasty either. You know,
You mean they haven't done their research and
he's just picking a number that seems big, right?
Yeah.
That's an extravagant number for a
that she cannot repay.
working family to pay back. Yeah. So now they're stuck here, singing for scraps in taverns every night, and the innkeeper won't let them leave until they pay these fake debts.
Yeah.
So Luda asks him a couple more questions. And turns out, because Master Zhang, Lord of the West, that sounds pretty
It
intimidating.
sounds like some Game of Thrones
Yeah,
title.
like governor or general or
Yeah.
something. Turns out he's some butcher that lives by the bridge.
Yeah.
And he just calls himself Lord of the West.
Yeah.
So Luda gets pissed
so
off.
angry, yeah.
He says, bah.
Well, it's hard to tell. Maybe I feel like some part of his anger was like, how dare this butcher calls himself Lord
I
of
think
the
he's
West.
more mad about that
Yeah.
than the...
Rather than he like
Yeah.
did this atrocity to the girl and her father. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is what he says. Bah, said Luda contemptuously. So Master Zheng is only Zheng the pig sticker, the dirty rogue who runs a butcher shop under the patronage of young General Zhang, our garrison commander. And he cheats and bullies too, does he? He turned to Li Zhang and Shujin. You two wait here while I beat the varlet to death.
yeah.
I'll be right back. They grabbed him.
Of course. Yeah.
Calm yourself, brother, they pleaded. Let's talk this over again later. They finally managed to restrain him. So Lil Da's just like, that's it. I'm just going to go kill this guy.
Yeah. Not just beat him.
Yeah.
Beat him to death.
They're like, no, Luda, calm down. You've had too much to drink.
Yeah.
So, you know, Luda, if Shujin is like the fantasy of like, man, what if I hadn't had to study Confucius and I just did martial arts all day?
Yeah.
How tough could I have been?
Yeah.
Luda is just a guy who just acts in the moment,
Yeah.
right? And he gets mad. He just does something about it.
Yeah.
But he gets calmed down
Acting on every single one of his impulsions.
Yeah. And he's really tough.
Yeah.
Luda decides, all right, we're going to give money to Jin and Jade Lotus, Jin's her dad, so they can move back home. Because, you know, they got to like rent a cart and they got to like, you know, have food for the journey and stuff. So he borrows money from Shujin and Li Zhang to do it.
Which Li Zhong doesn't have that much money.
No, he didn't even get to sell his medicine.
I know.
But Li Zhang gives him a couple taels of silver, which is a lot.
And Luda gets annoyed.
Yeah.
Luda's like, this is too little.
He's like, you cheapskate.
Yeah. He's using other people's generosity to his own. They've been voluntold.
Yeah, they've been voluntold.
Yeah.
Right, and it's like you're in the moment. This is a face-based culture.
Mm-hmm.
You got to just do it, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's so.
This seems very unfair to the other people.
I know. Well, Shujin's a little rich boy, so he's fine.
That's true.
So the plan for them is to prepare to leave tonight, and Lu Da will make sure they can leave tomorrow morning because again, the inn is not going to let them leave.
Mm-mm.
The plan is for them to prepare tonight,
Mm.
and then he's going to go with them tomorrow morning to make sure they can leave the city. Because
Yeah.
again, Master Zheng, Lord of the West, again, it's sort of implied that he has it's sort of almost like a mafia-esque element in the city.
Yeah.
And
he is more than a butcher.
He is more than a butcher.
But not that much more.
And so he has pull on things like the innkeeper and that kind of stuff. And they're
Yeah.
so Lu Da needs to make sure he can leave.
He might also just be a tough dude who's good at fighting, so everyone's also scared of him.
Yes.
Like they're scared of Lu Da.
Well, he's a butcher. He's got cleavers and things.
Sure.
So Jade Lotus and Jin pay off all their real debts and buy traveling supplies. But the innkeeper's attendant tries to stop them from leaving in the morning. Fortunately, though, Lu Da is there.
To beat the innkeeper up.
Yeah. Again, this is for anyone who's ever had like an annoying experience with a landlord.
Yeah.
So Lu Da says, "Does he owe you any rent?" Lu Da demanded. Innkeeper, "He paid last night, but Master Zheng has ordered me to collect the money he laid out for Jin's daughter. I'll return the butcher's money in person. Let the old man go." The attendant refused. Lu Da slapped him across the face with such force that blood gushed from his mouth.
Yeah.
The punch that followed knocked out 2 of his front teeth. Crawling to his feet, the attendant scuttled to the interior of the inn and hid himself. Of course, the innkeeper dared not intervene. So this is Lu Da.
So don't do that if you have rent problems with your landlord,
Just
listeners. Yeah.
You might want to, but don't just go, "Oh yeah," and punch him in the face.
Yeah.
So, so Jin and Jade Lotus can go. Lu Da waits at the inn for a few hours to make sure no one leaves to try and chase them down. He just like sits in the lobby.
Yeah.
So then he heads down to deal with Zheng, Master of the West. Zheng has quite a fancy butcher shop, like in the square by the bridge, with 10 assistants chopping up meat. So this is a local business leader in the community, Cherry.
Yeah. I don't know if he's still good enough to be called the Lord of the West, but yeah.
Well, Lu Da certainly doesn't think so.
Yeah.
So Lu Da invents a fake order, saying he needs 10 caddies of meat.
For the garrison commander.
Yes.
So they can't refuse.
No. And obviously Lu Da again, he's an officer. Again, think about this, though. As we learn more about Lu Da, the most unrealistic thing about this story so far is that Lu Da has made it this far in life.
In the military.
In the military.
Even in 11th century, like Chinese military standards,
Yeah.
this seems very unlikely.
Yeah.
He is-
With how easily he gets mad about
He's
stuff.
he's the least disciplined person ever that
Yeah.
has showed up in this
Yeah. Supposedly, though,
in
he's
this
a
book so far.
major in the army and
Yeah.
has probably hundreds of troops under his command.
Yeah.
So he asked for
But
10.
but his only solution to anything is just to go beat them up himself.
Yeah, or run away, as we'll find out. So it's 36 stratagem.
Yeah.
So a caddy of meat, or a caddy, is like a tael. It's a Chinese measurement, and it's a little bit more than a pound. So 10 caddies is about 12 pounds. Again, this is from the modern version of a caddy. It might have been slightly different in the Song Dynasty. Measurements change, but so 12 pounds of meat. So that's a lot of meat. And he wants it chopped so fine there's not a speck of fat in it. Pork has a lot of fat in it, so it's a task.
Yeah.
And he's like, "I don't want your grimy assistants to do it. I want you to do it, Zhang." And Zhang's like, "Well, it's a major at the garrison, I gotta." I
Jiang
gotta
has
do
no
it."
idea what he's in for
No.
just yet.
The inn attendant shows up, covered in if this was a movie, we gotta watch some of the TV versions of this because just the imagery is funny. The attendant from the inn that Lu Da beats up shows up,
Yeah.
and he's like peering around the corner and stuff, like trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to warn the butcher.
He's head bound in a white handkerchief
Yeah,
because he's injured.
Yeah, because
Okay.
he got bloody, and then but Lu Da's there, so he can't go in and warn the butcher.
Yeah.
So
So he just stands afar
Yeah,
and waits
yeah,
and
and is
really
nervous.
scared.
So it takes Zhang like an hour to cut up all the meat. Then Lu Da asks for 12 pounds of just fatty meat with no lean in it, which seems to annoy Zhang, but he does it anyway, and it takes him another hour.
When I was reading, I overlooked the hour thing. But now I realize, yes, like it takes a whole hour for him to do it. And this
Lu
whole
Da's
time,
just sitting
Lu Da just
there.
sitting there waiting.
Yeah. Just watching him.
I know. Do you think he feels very indict? Like, you know, he's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, he's like,
I'm really showing you.
cut up that pork.
Yeah.
So
learn your lesson.
Now this is from the book. Le Da says, now I want 10 caddies of gristle, chopped fine, also used for filling, and I don't want to see any meat in it. And then Jang laughs awkwardly. Are you making fun of me?
Yeah.
And Le Da leaped up, one package of chopped meat in each hand, and scowled at the butcher. That's exactly what I'm doing. Making fun of you. He flung the contents of the packages full in Zheng's face.
Yeah.
So, that's Le Da. But you know, Le Da, passionate man, but he can play the long game. He could sit there.
Yeah, for 2-something hours.
For 2 hours watching the butcher cut up meat for this one moment.
Yeah.
So, the shower of meat stung the butcher into a rage. From the soles of his feet, fury surged into his forehead. An irrepressible flame blazed in his heart. He grabbed a paring knife from the butcher's block and jumped from the shop steps. Le Da was waiting for him in the middle of the street. None of the dozen or so clerks from the neighboring shops dared mediate. Passers-by stood frozen in their tracks on both sides of the street. The attendant from the inn was struck dumb in his bandages. Remember, this is China during the Song Dynasty.
Yeah.
The Northern Song Dynasty, too. It's a civilized place. You can't just...
This doesn't happen every day.
You can't just fight people in the streets.
Generally, no.
No, this isn't like the Vikings or like, I don't know, medieval France or something where people can have, there's rules.
There's rules,
You can't fight people in the streets.
No.
Especially not in the town square. So everybody's like, whoa, what's going on here? Also, remember, Le Da is a major in the military. Yeah. Right? He is a person of some, authority.
It's just hard to believe he's made this far without having done anything like this and everyone's surprised.
Yeah.
Maybe he's done lower offenses.
Well, it turns out that Le Da guy really has a temper.
Yeah.
So
they fight.
Yeah, and Le Da beats the crap out of the guy, say he's no master of the West, and that he's a jerk for what he did to Jade Lotus and Jin. So this is a quote of the fight. He landed a punch on Zhang's nose that flattened it to one side and brought the blood flowing like the sauces in a condiment shop. Salty, sour, and spicy. Zhang struggled vainly to rise. The knife fell from his hand. A good blow, he cried.
Yeah.
Zhang's trying to all right, you beat me up. Let's just be friends now, you know? Let's shake hands and get over it. But Le Da, Master Zhang is not a man of valor. He's a cheat. And
he begs when he's getting beaten up.
He begs when he's beaten. So this just makes Le Da even angrier.
Yeah.
He says, "Mother-raping thief," said the major. "How dare you talk back?" He punched the butcher on the eyebrow, splitting the lid so the eyeball protruded. Red, black, and purple gore flowed like swatches of cloth in a draper's shop.
Yeah.
The spectators were all afraid of Le Da. None of them ventured to intervene. Vanquished, Zhang begged to be spared.
Wrong move.
If he had been like, screw you, you know, maybe Le Da would be like, oh, this guy's got some fire.
Yeah. Maybe I can add his name to the Tough Dude network.
No, but
he begged.
Yeah. So he's out of the category of like a real person. "You scurvy knave," the major exclaimed scornfully. "If you had shown any guts, I might have let you off.
Yeah.
But since you're so lily-livered, I won't."
You showed weakness.
He struck the butcher a heavy blow on the temple. Zhang's head rang like the clanging of gongs, bells, and cymbals in a big memorial service. The butcher laid stretched out on the ground. Breath was coming out of his mouth, but none was going in. He didn't move. Le Da immediately realizes, this is not from the book though, it quotes over, but he's like, oh damn, I just killed this guy.
I thought that was his goal though.
Well, you know, I think he got caught up in the heat of the moment. I think he thought, I'll just knock him.
He said, I only wanted to give the varlet a beating. Who would have thought that 3 blows would kill him?
Well, I mean, you're just too tough of a dude, Le Da.
Yeah.
So he tries to play it cool. And he's like, haha, nice try playing dead, Zhang, but I'll see you tomorrow.
I'll settle with you later.
Yeah. He's like, you
shakes his finger.
You rascal. And then he walks off.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'm not going to jail, so I got to leave town.
And why is he not going to jail? Well, aside from the normal reasons.
Well, why don't you talk about... We talked a little bit about Chinese jails in the Opium War episode from, I guess, a Western perspective.
Yeah.
But let's talk about Chinese jail, because being imprisoned as punishment for a crime doesn't really exist in this time period. Prison is a place where you store people. Well, jail is a place where you store people temporarily for various reasons. Or you extort them in the jail. So why don't you talk about Chinese jails?
Aside from all the normal reasons Lu Da wouldn't want to go to jail, or anyone wouldn't want to go to jail, he had a specific reason. He said, I've got nobody to bring me food in prison. And I was like, that's weird. That's so specific. But like we talked about in the Judge D episode, Chinese jail, Asian Chinese jail is a whole thing by its own. It's not what you think of modern jails.
It's basically just a cage somewhere.
I don't know if it's the same elsewhere at this time period, 11th century, but the Chinese jail at the time, it's terrible. And anyone who has smaller offenses wouldn't really be in jail if you can pay the fine.
Yeah.
And, it would just get sorted out. And anyone who stays in jail, either you did kill someone and then you got beheaded at the town square, which is something we do and a spectacle for the town. I don't know. Maybe I'll take it back. The civilized society, that was the Song Dynasty.
Everyone was doing that, though.
That's true, yeah. But we were just like, we have roads and silk and tea.
We also sometimes torture people to death in the town square, so,
Yeah.
Beheading is one of the better ones.
Exactly. But if you didn't get the beheading treatment and you stay in jail and you're poor, well, that's going to be really bad news for you.
Yeah.
And I want to quote Lu Xun, this Chinese writer, a leading figure of modern Chinese literature, one of my favorite writers. Everyone should read him, talking about Chinese jail. He said, quote, "As for the old-fashioned prison, it was like a Buddhist hell. So it not only imprisoned criminals, but also had the responsibility to endure hardship. Sometimes there is also a duty to extract money from relatives of prisoners and make them destitute." He's being sarcastic here, by the way. When he said duty, he's like, it's almost like they're doing this, like, they're saying that they're doing this as a duty, but it's really a tool of...
They're doing the corruption so enthusiastically, it's like it's their job.
Yes, exactly. And then he said, quote, "And everyone took it for granted. If there are people who don't agree, that is helping others to commit crimes. And they must be suspected of committing crimes." Quote. So, I guess it's the same as the modern sort of like incarceration argument. The punishment of the crime needs to be heavy. Otherwise, if you're like nice to the criminals, you're like encourage them to do crime.
Yeah, which is does not really line up with the evidence and with recidivism and stuff.
Yes. And then he said, quote, "However, the level of civilization has improved very much." And this is like in the early 20th century. "Last year, officials advocated that prisoners should be released once a year to give themselves the opportunity to solve their sexual desires. This is a very humanitarian statement." Quote. Again, he was being very sarcastic.
Yeah.
So this is what Chinese jails were like. And if you are poor, the reason you're in jail, and if you're poor and you have family that care about you, that's the best case scenario for the jail guards to squeeze money and goods out of you and your family.
The best case is actually if you're like a fail son.
Yes.
And your parents are rich.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
And then they're going to pay to get you out of the jail.
Yes. But if you stay in jail, though, that's a long-term
Revenue
revenue stream for them.
It's like a subscription.
And your family will bring you food. Your family will bring you goods. Half of, or most of those goods would be taken.
Yeah.
It will never get to you. And so if you don't have family to bring you food, like Lu Da, he wouldn't.
No.
All you would get is enough food so that you don't die.
Yeah.
And that is going to be terrible, right?
Yeah.
And
Lu Da's a big guy. He needs a lot of food.
Lu Da is a big guy. And then they don't care if you die. The only problem, though, if you die is that, they can't extract more money out of you. But if you don't have family to bring you food, you could just die. What are they going to do? They don't get anything out of you anyways, being alive. Lu Xun gave the example that this is in the 20th century. But only imagine it was 1,000 times worse, 1,000 years earlier in the Song Dynasty. So he said, this couple, quote, was detained in a prison in Nanjing for the purpose of propagating communism. They went on a hunger strike 3 or 4 times, but to no avail. And this is because he does not understand the Chinese prison spirit.
They're like, you don't want to eat? Okay, well, sure, we'll save some money.
Yes. A government official said he did not understand. If the prisoners did not want to eat themselves, no one else forced them to do so, what is the problem? Not only is it irrelevant to the benevolent government, but saving food is beneficial to the prison. And then he said, this is my favorite sentence, he said, if Gandhi didn't choose the right audience and place for his trick, it would not have worked. Quote. Meaning it would not have worked in China. Hunger strike, not a problem.
Yeah.
It's not a... that we just don't have the concept that this is going to be a problem.
I mean, all the people going to the COVID quarantine right now in the concentration camps, do you think the government cares if they're on hunger strike?
No, they don't.
Half these people are on involuntary hunger strike.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So that's why Lu Da didn't want to go to prison, and I don't blame him.
Well, and part of that is that, and we talked about this a little bit in the Judge D episode, that like there's only a couple people in the entire government in a local area that actually get a salary.
Yeah.
From the state.
Yeah.
Everybody else, you essentially sell them the position.
Yeah.
And then their job is to make up the money.
It's like legalized mafia.
Yeah, right? It's like, oh, we need a guy who guards the bridge. And then you don't pay that guy, but that guy can then extort money from people.
Bribes.
Yeah, of people, guarding the bridge. Same thing with the person running the jail.
Yeah.
They don't get paid, but like, again, as you said, families, want to send stuff to people, and so that's how they get their money.
Yeah.
So it's all very much runs on corruption.
Yeah.
And this is all
it's a feature of the system. It's not the flaw of the system.
It's a money saving.
Yeah.
So anyway, Lu Da, knowing all that about prison, is like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And,
can you blame him?
No. So he grabs all his stuff and runs out the south gate, quote unquote, like a wisp of smoke. You might think, maybe this is self-defense, right? Because, yes, Lu Da did some stuff, but then the butcher ran out with a knife, and then Lu Da beat him up.
Yeah.
But the justice system works a little bit different in medieval China, in
Imperial China.
Imperial China.
Medieval.
Yeah, it works a little different, and it's almost like it doesn't really matter who started it. In a general sense, if you cause trouble, everybody is getting punished.
Yeah.
Because the government just doesn't want people fighting or causing trouble at all. So
social harmony.
Exactly. So there's this whole, goes on for like 2 pages of like, it's all very modern where they like, they the families report it to the government sends out an inspector and a forensic investigator. They go, yes, this guy's dead.
Yeah.
They interview people all over the town and like get the details. And then they're like, they go tell the magistrate, yes, Lu Da killed this guy. So then the magistrate's got to go to the general.
Yeah.
And it's like, your dude killed some guys.
Yeah.
And the general's like, really? He's like, well, Lu Da is actually my father's retainer, who I'm like borrowing.
Yeah.
So do what you got to do, but you got to tell my dad.
Yeah.
And
not my problem.
And the magistrate's like, okay, fine. So this is what the court decides, right? After all this like 2 pages of all this deliberation.
Yeah.
Say, police are sent to apprehend Lu Da within a specified time or they will be beaten. Measures-based incentives here in Imperial China.
Yeah.
You bring them back or you get beaten. A bounty is set at 1,000 strings of cash, which again, remember the dowry for Jade Lotus was 3,000 strings. So a ridiculous sum.
Yeah.
That was. And the other shop owners who watched it happen get beaten for not stopping the crime.
Yeah.
They go, you should have dragged them apart.
Yeah.
Even though Lu Da is like a Guan Yu Avatar of War crazy guy.
Yeah. And they would have likely died if they tried to stop him.
But you know what? Social harmony, as you said, you got to do it.
Yeah.
So, but Lu Da, however, is long gone. He's on the run.
Yeah.
So, what were you going to talk about?
Well, they describe Lu Da's like, there's a monologue.
There's another poem too I want to read.
Yeah, so you should say that poem first, and
okay,
there's
I'll
another
say
one.
the
We'll
poem.
say both poems.
So this is how it's described.
Yeah.
Lu Da, how frantic he is on the road. This is the poem. Translated into English. It says, any food when you're hungry. When you're cold, rags save life. Any road when you're frightened. When you're poor, any wife. So these are some, that just means, you're just doing what you can,
Yeah.
So that's Lu Da. He's on the road, sleeping where he can.
Yeah.
Doing whatever.
Yeah.
So
this might be the same, although, well, the Chinese version, there's another poem.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to translate it, okay? It says, Lu Da is like the lone goose who lost its group. Fly up to the sky alone in a hurry while the moon is bright.
Ooh.
The lone fish that slips through the net, surf and ride the water waves. Far or near, regardless of heights, In a hurry, he knocked down pedestrians, and his feet were as fast as a horse in battle. Period.
So that's Le Da.
He's really on the run now.
He's on the run. He's a fish that slipped the net.
Yeah.
He's gone.
He's riding the waves.
36 stratagem.
And knocking over pedestrians, apparently.
Leave.
Yeah.
So after this time of just scrambling, he arrives in Daizhou Prefecture at the city of Yamen. He sees some posters, but Le Da can't read.
No.
Remember, Chinese officers in the military, totally separate track from
Confucian scholars.
You get promoted in the military for being a tough dude.
Yeah.
Which is, again, when in our Opium War episodes, you run into problems later in history where militaries need to be much more professionalized and they're much more technology based.
Yeah.
And
you have to be literate at least.
Yeah, and you have people who are in charge because they're just really good at swinging a sword.
Yeah. Like Lu Da.
And Le Da. So Le Da can't read. And so he walks up to a crowd listening to an announcement of somebody reading off the posters. Mm-hmm. Turns out it's a bounty announcement.
On him.
For him, yeah. So Le Da's like, I wonder what that's about. And, he's like, oh. As Le Da stood listening, someone threw his arms around him from behind and cried, "What are you doing here, Brother Zhang?" and he pulled Le Da away from the street corner.
Yeah.
Who, after all, was this person who grabbed Le Da? Read our next chapter if you would know. So there we go, Cherry. We got excitement.
Yeah.
We have 2 people now who've ruined their lives.
We have.
from just...
I think we're about to have 108 people who ruined their lives. I'm sorry. Some of them are already bandits, like the 3 bandits.
Yeah. Well, we don't get the backstory of how they... We need a prequel for how the 3 of them have ruined their lives.
Yeah.
But Le Da and Shi Jin, both people, high stature in society. This is like... this is like the upper... probably 1%, of... Shu Family Village has 400 families.
Yeah.
All named Shu.
Yeah.
He's the top family.
He's the top family. Yeah.
Right? So this is people who have big statuses in society.
Yeah.
And we're going to meet some lower class people, right? Mm-hmm. Who are just like peasants and they're trying to make a buck.
Yeah.
And they get into some trouble.
Yeah.
But Le Da and Shi Jin just, made bad decisions. Yeah. 108 people ruining their lives. Sure.
Yeah. Well, you could argue in a way it's not that they made bad decisions. Yes, they made bad decisions. But
Shi Jin made bad decisions. I think we could safely say. Nine Dragon Shi Jin.
But he made them because, he wants to be a brother. It's, this society is just no place for brothers.
Yeah.
And robbers. And criminals. So you could argue. I don't know if society's fault in terms of Shi Jin.
Like, Nine Dragon Shi Jin, he's a tough dude. But his fantasy is just he wants to have adventure. Yeah. Right? And, the only real adventure he can find is against the government.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that's chapter 3.
Yeah.
And we have many more exciting chapters to go. We are just scratching the surface of bad decisions made by...
What's tough dude count, though?
5. No, 6.
6.
Because we have the
Wang
3
Zhong,
bandits.
The medicine peddler.
Yeah, we have the 3 bandits. We have Li Zhong, we have Shi Jin, and we have Le Da.
Yeah.
So that's the 6. So it's going to be a while, though, before the whole gang gets together, though.
It is. Well, 1 episode at a time.
We got a lot more bad decisions to go through.
We do.
So anyway, we should have another episode next week of chapter 4. Mm-hmm. And then I think we're going to have...
a regular episode
after chapter 5.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's going to be about Chinese capitals. So look forward to that.
Yay.
Ancient Chinese capitals. So anyway, thank you for listening and have a nice day.
See you next time.